Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. XRP's price doesn't reflect its true value yet. There's been a lot of talk on this concept yet. When is utility actually going to matter? Well, I've never pretended to know the answer to that. Right now it's just a bunch of speculation having to do with XRP and the world of crypto at large. For many, I mean, I'm here for utility reasons, and so I'd be an exception to that, and perhaps you are too. If you're here as a member of the XRP community, and it really is not just speculation, then you'd be an outlier, that's kind of cool though, right? Maybe we're seeing something before most people. Perhaps that is the case, but regardless, it's very clear that XRP is solving a real problem, and fair enough to point out that corridors need to expand, need new corridors, and you need to truly disrupt SWIFT in a notable fashion. Well, check this out. The guy that's running the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, that's a United States federal government entity, the OCC for short. They're the ones that recently greenlit the banks to now custody cryptocurrencies for their customers, right? That's the entity that did it, and the guy that's running that now made fun of SWIFT on national television today. You gotta love this stuff. So XRP's price not reflecting true value. I don't hate it at this point because I had an opportunity to recognize the value, the utility, which I think it's okay to use interchangeably in this context, at least. I feel like I found it before the rest of the world even knows XRP exists. And sounds like you might have too. Now, before going any further and sharing any of my additional thoughts on this, and there's plenty to say, I want to be clear that I'm not a financial advisor, and you should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be quite a terrible idea. And so just go ahead and, if you don't hate everything that's coming to my mouth, go ahead and hit the like button. That does tell YouTube to push my content out further, and consider subscribing if you've not. This is an XRP-centric channel, so if that sounds like your jam, you might not hate this. Oh, also, I gotta share with you this headline too. I'm going to cover this. This is from FX News Group. Exclusive: Goldman Sachs FX executive leaves, joins Ripple. How about that? A Goldman Sachs executive. Which, by the way, to this point, it's ridiculous. They deny that Goldman Sachs denies that the crypto, there is a cryptocurrency asset class. They just say there flat out isn't. It doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. It's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's start with this, though. This is just a funny thing I thought I'd share with you from Kevin Bledsoe, who tagged me along with a few others in the XRP community and wrote, and this is a picture, so you have to look at your screen if you want to see this. It's kind of gross looking. And this is a picture of Bitcoin maxi trolls when you explain utility uses for various altcoins. And so, like, I've tried to explain to a Bitcoin maxi troll that XRP can be used as a bridge currency. And so I'll be like, yeah, so Mr. Bitcoin maxi troll, XRP can be used as a bridge currency, taking out the chain of bilateral banking relationships. And they'll just stop me and they'll just start going, that's exactly what they sound like. Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And they'll just keep interrupting you like that. I'm like, but hold on, there's real utility. And like, and they just rev up again. It's freaking crazy, man. So let's jump into this, and shout out to Frecky. He tagged me in this video clip, which goes on for 7 minutes, which I encourage you to watch if you have some time. But basically, and here's the guy. This is Brian Brooks, and here's his Twitter account, acting comptroller of the currency at the US OCC. And check this out. Also, former chief legal officer at Coinbase. Yes, United States-based cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase. He went from there, and now he's running this entity within the federal government that is creating policy surrounding cryptocurrency and lots of other stuff. I mean, to be clear, so like I Googled him here, and I just thought I'd pull this up. So, what banks are regulated by the OCC? The OCC charters, regulates, and supervises all national banks and federal savings associations, as well as federal branches and agencies of foreign banks. The OCC is an independent bureau of the United States Department of the Treasury. All right, so they're the ones in charge of creating policy specifically for banks. One of the things, and this is him on the screen right here, he's talking to Julia Chatterley, who you may recognize. Yeah, that's Julia Chatterley. She's interviewed Brad Garlinghouse and others as well. in the world of crypto. But she asked him some really interesting questions. She specifically, because she knows about Swift, she's talked to Brad Garland, how she's done the research, right? And so she asked about Swift, the way that you can move money around the planet, this or that. We know what Swift is. I'm not going to explain. I know there's a lot of new people in crypto today, but I'm not going to get into that in this video, what Swift is and how it's being disrupted by Ripple and XRP. But suffice it to say, and this was so freaking funny to me, so Brian Brooks, who's running the OCC now, he says, oh yes, Swift, one of the most ironically named entities on the entire planet. Because you think Swift, it's super duper fast, right? He says no, it's ironically named, obviously because it's so freaking slow. And so he clearly pointed at the problem. And as far as how he views the role of the OCC, just to be clear, he stated that it's not his position that he's either bullish or bearish specifically on cryptocurrency, but there's an acknowledgement, and he made this acknowledgement. This is why, like I've said, look, the cryptocurrency asset class is here to stay. Even if I'm wrong about XRP, and I don't think I am, but even if I am, then it's still here to stay, the crypto asset class. And he said as much, and I've been saying this forever, but I feel validated when I continue to hear stuff like this. And so I'll keep pointing it out as we go along throughout time here. But Brian Brooks stated that there's just a firm recognition that the public at large is purchasing cryptocurrencies. They're in the world of blockchain. And so his stance is that if it's going to happen, it's best to just regulate it rather than fight it. That's in a nutshell what he stated right there. And check out this stat. Did you know, and this kind of blew my mind, this is a much higher number than I would have guessed, because mind you, less than 1% of humans on the planet own Bitcoin, and even fewer know about XRP, but check this out. 50 million Americans own cryptocurrency. 50 million Americans. That's 15% of the population, roughly. So there's about 327 million Americans. 50 million of them own cryptocurrency today. Holy hell, that's gigantic. And so obviously when you see something like that, if you're going to take a rational, pragmatic approach to all of this, even though admittedly it's a burgeoning asset class, only a little over 10 years old, it seems to make more sense not to fight it and just regulate. And even from the perspective of the way money's moving around the planet, because, he talked about Swift, and he talked about how banks, they're on these ancient payment rails. And if you're talking about converting from one fiat currency to another, RippleNet can help with that. It can certainly help with that and utilize XRP as a bridge currency. And actually in Japan, it even helps with their local rails were so bad that the banks in Japan wanted to find out if they could just use RippleNet, then known as Xcurrent, the messaging portion, just within their own country, because their local rails were so bad. And they're like, well, yeah, that's not why we made it, but sure. And so they ended up using it, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. So they had particularly bad rails, but even in the United States, he was talking about how the United States is behind so many other countries around the world. If you're talking about even just domestic payment rails here. And so he's been talking about how fintech companies, and he said most of them in Silicon Valley, how about that, are been innovating for like the last 15 years or so. And he ended up also citing PayPal specifically. And the bottom line is as far as the way money moves around, even on a domestic level, banks are so poor at it that fintech companies have been taking that over. And so what's interesting is that fintech companies historically have not been under the purview of the OCC, this entity of the federal government, but they're taking on effectively banking activities, and so there's been this recognition that, yeah, maybe we should come in and kind of regulate this, not fight it, not fight it. He made it clear, not to fight it, but just regulate it so that it can protect consumers, which I think is a perfectly rational approach to take here. And they've been doing this for some time. In fact, take a look at this Yahoo Finance article titled it's titled the OCC's crypto custody letter was years in the making. And again, of course, like I cited earlier, the OCC they've lighted the ability of banks to hold cryptocurrency for customers. This has been a long time coming. Check this out. A federal banking regulator's decision to let banks provide crypto custody services may have seemed out of the blue, but the agency has been looking at cryptocurrencies for years. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, or OCC for short, announced last month that federally regulated banks could provide services to crypto startups in addition to custody. It turns out that the OCC was already leaning toward the move before acting comptroller Brian Brooks took the top job at the agency. So it wasn't purely him, but obviously he's on board. I mean, he freaking came from Coinbase. This should not be surprising that he's on board and taking a completely reasonable, rational approach from what I've seen so far. Indeed, the OCC has been examining the cryptocurrency space since at least 2018 and likely longer, said Jonathan Gould, Senior Deputy Comptroller and Chief Counsel. He told CoinDesk that the very act of writing an interpretive letter typically takes months. And here's a quote, "Before we actually put pen to paper, that process can sometimes take a while." Now, the OCC's interpretive letter last month opened the door for banks to provide services to crypto companies in addition to custody services for cryptocurrencies directly. But it's unlikely that banks will immediately start providing either service. Now that's true. I've made that point on this channel, and it's not necessarily that they wouldn't want to. I think demand's primarily going to dictate which banks jump in, how many of them jump in, with how much gusto do they do it. Well, it's going to depend on demand, but even if there's a bunch of pent-up demand right now, they're like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. It could take, if they didn't have anything in place, it could take time to roll out something like this. And why would they have something firmly in place given that they couldn't really legally do this up until this point? So don't be surprised if it does take a little while, but it's still coming. It's clearly still coming. This is not going away, and it is super clear. I've been pointing this out time and again in so many of my recent videos. This asset class is here to stay, and demand for cryptocurrencies and related services are on the rise. I've shown, not in this video, but I've shown plenty of charts indicating as much, even as recently as yesterday, quite literally. It's going to keep coming. And so what do you think is going to happen to a cryptocurrency like XRP that is actually getting used in the real world today? In enterprise commercial-ready software, or enterprise-ready commercial software. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I don't pretend to know for sure, but again, if you're the type that thinks utility matters, just saying, man. Now into this, I want to give a shout out to All the Way 08, who linked this article about this Goldman Sachs guy that's joining Ripple. So he tagged me and he wrote the following: the caliber of people that come and go to this little San Francisco startup is insane. In case people don't know, Goldman Sachs is a revolving door of elites from Ivy League schools and governments. They go there, they go to government, they come back. Ripple is becoming that too. I think that's a fair enough point, man. So I wanted to share that with anybody listening here. And take a look at this. There's not a ton to say, but I just want to make sure I share this with you. So here's the piece from FX News Group. F&G exclusive. F&G has learned that senior Goldman Sachs FX executive, I'm going to butcher the name probably, Aditya Tarakia. I don't know, maybe that's right, probably not. He has resigned to join Ripple. Mr. Tarakia will become Ripple's new senior manager of global institutional markets. He spent the last 7+ years at Goldman Sachs, beginning as an FX analyst in Bangalore, India, in 2013, before moving to London in 2015, where he rose through the ranks of the investment bank to become executive director, global FX and emerging markets franchise management for Goldman. Before joining Goldman Sachs in 2010, he had worked at Flow Traders and HSBC in Singapore. So look, I'm telling you, people I understand that Goldman Sachs' official position, as absurd as it sounds, is that Bitcoin is not an asset class. I mean, technically, it's more like there's a cryptocurrency asset class. As much as they want to deny it, there are all sorts of smart people that work there that, in this case, are jumping ship to Ripple. So, how about that? Just saying, man. Exciting times we live in here. I could not be more thrilled to be a part of all of this. And for almost 3 years now, and I'm going to continue to hold my XRP for decades and decades and decades. I'm never going to sell all of it, while the rest of the world catches up and maybe figures it out. But I think that those of us that are here first, I suspect, will have the greatest opportunity. Now, that being said, I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.